Oh, thank you so much for having me. I'm just so honored to be here today, and I want to give a huge congratulations to all the finalists. I've had a look at some of the pieces of work, and I'm not an artist. My art goes into what I wear. So to be able to make something to me feels like magic, and particularly to be able to make something from waste is even more magical. So congratulations to everyone here today who submitted artwork. So when I was invited to speak at this, and I had a look at Reimagine, the website, and the ethos behind it, and I'll read that to you. It was a statement that said, "Rethink to repurpose." It refers to the decisions we make every day about how much waste we create and how we can reuse materials to help save our precious natural resources. The extraction of raw materials, production, transport, and consumption directly affects our environment, including native wildlife, aquatic species, and bird life. Now, every year we get closer and closer to breaching we breach our planetary boundaries, so much that we overshoot date gets closer and closer to the beginning of the year, right? So in 2024, it was August 1st, and this year it's slated to be July 24th. And what that means is that we are extracting, consuming virgin resources of the earth more so every single year. And with that, the damage that we're causing to the earth is increasing. And you have things like freshwater usage and pollution, biodiversity loss is getting worse. We have things like Land Use Act. All these things are happening, climate change, all these things are happening, increased emissions. Now, this is why it's important, the circular economy is important for supporting climate and emission targets. So, in Australia, every year, we are throwing away close to 76 million tons of stuff, right? And a lot of it is reusable. I'll tell you a story. I moved to Sydney in 2021. I lived in Melbourne for 2 years, and for obvious reasons, Melbourne became a little bit unlivable because of a little bug, and we're locked down. So I decided I'm going to escape to Sydney. So in May 2021, I escaped to Sydney, and guess what happened two days later after I found a place and moved in? Lockdown. I was like, what the hell? And everybody blamed me. They said I caused it, right? And what happened was I moved before my things arrived, so I had nothing. I had a few clothes, I had no pots or pans or anything, and I didn't know what to do, right? And I needed at least even a cooking pot, just one. And I thought, okay, I'm going to go to a store. It felt a bit awkward because the whole situation. And I thought, okay, what I'm just gonna do, at least I'm gonna get an electric walk. And before I could get myself together, I don't know, it was like telepathy. My neighbor put out an electric walk in perfect condition with a bunch of other stuff for the council to pick up.
Wow.
And I picked it up, and I still use it to this day. Not kidding, true story. Now, what's interesting about that is one person is discarding something, one of that 76 million tons I talked about, somebody else who could be your next door neighbor is going to IKEA, Kmart, Big W to buy that exact same thing, right? So we need a circular economy. We need swapping, not just with clothes, but with things in our neighborhoods, in our schools, in our workplaces. We need to make it a regular, everyday thing. Now, what's great about Hornsby Council, I've known about Hornsby Council, Michael and his colleagues for years, and I've always admired Hornsby because I work with a lot of councils across the country. But Hornsby's reuse economy is really tight, really, really impressive. So for example, there's the Hornsby Market that happens, I believe, 4 times a year. Yeah, so this market has 30 stall holders, and each market you have 500 to 700 attendees, and they're selling and buying things, all these household things, from electric walks, I'm sure, to things you use every day, candles, books, toys, clothes, all these household items that would otherwise be discarded, right? So that's why that's really important. They have an online listing marketplace. I mean, imagine, how many people use Gumtree, Facebook Marketplace? So imagine a council having its own marketplace. I think that's pretty rare, and it's quite progressive. Hornsby also partners with the Bauer Reuse and Repair, which is very important. So we need more. Everyone knows that sometimes it's easier to buy something that's damaged, then pay money for it to be repaired, right? But the more repair cafes we have, the more we teach people how to repair simple things, it goes a long way in reducing the amount of stuff that we send to landfill every year. And it saves money, because let's face it, we're in a cost of living crisis, right? And what's also impressive about Hornsby is the FOGO. So there's a target for July 2027 to, I know my dates.
Yeah. Chris will be watching.
Exactly. To have a fourth bin specifically for food organics, which is very important because we know that food is one of the biggest contributors to the climate crisis. And most importantly, the council collects 20 tons of garden organics on average every single year. So that's pretty incredible. Then there are other, smaller reuse initiatives such as clothes swapping, which was mentioned here. I've been hosting clothes swaps for almost 15 years. I'm revealing my age. But one of the things that I want to see, as I kind of alluded to a little bit earlier, is not just about clothes swapping. In our neighborhoods, in our social groups, in our schools, wherever we exist, we can develop a swapping culture as part of mainstream Australian culture. It doesn't have to be clothes. It could be kitchenware. It could be electronics. It could be books. Every single thing that we use, right? And it could just be, you're going to your neighborhood barbecue and you just bring a few things that you have, that you bought that you never used. And I guarantee somebody needs it and was thinking of buying that same product. So just making it part of everyday culture. It doesn't have to be a big event. It doesn't have to be a big deal. But just that swapping, you have extra flowers in your garden. Okay, give it to your neighbor. Okay, that you probably save them $10, from going to buy that stuff at the store, right? So, because every little bit helps when it comes to waste reduction. Now, as I mentioned earlier, Hornsby is so amazing and stuff they do. Other councils I talk to are always asking, what kind of initiatives are councils doing? So I point to Hornsby. But what's impressive about Hornsby is that they also like the act of best practice, looking at what other councils are doing. So for example, I work with Randwick Council, and they have something called Saturday Circle. So what that means is every second Saturday, they have something for everyone in the council where they have 12 activities and workshops where people can come to, whether they're children, parents, individuals. Everything from phone photography to learning how to regenerative farming, growing food for wildlife, clothes swapping, toy swaps, book swaps, Lego build, secondhand Lego build, almost everything. There's literally something for everyone. And people come there and they go to the different workshops to learn and to grow the circular economy within the council. Now, all this is great, and when people learn about waste statistics, everyone's always like, what can I do, right? And it's good because we see what the artists have created with waste, and it's fantastic. But how amazing would it be if we were able to scale these sort of activities, right? And you can, so as an individual, if you want to contribute to waste reduction, bless you, before you buy the next thing you're going to buy, before you acquire the next thing you're going to acquire in terms of physical material, when you look at the packaging, when you look at the product itself, ask yourself, what if, when I'm done with this product and packaging, I could not throw it away? No council, nobody's gonna come pick it up from your house. You can't throw it on the ground. What would you do with that piece of material, right? And that is how to change your behavior, right? That's one. And it's really hard because, I'm not trying to put guilt on us as consumers because I believe that the guilt lies with corporations, the people who create the packaging. However, there are little things that we can do. And thinking that way, I think, can turn us into advocates, right? Pushing our federal representatives to change the system, right? It's great that we're trying to manage waste, but there's no way, with the planetary boundaries we talked about, with what's happening with the Earth, there is no way as individuals we can do it alone. So the next step is doing things with our communities, and that's been mentioned here. Events like this, clothes swapping, when you're part of an environmental group, right? That's community action. But is that enough? I don't think so. I think at some stage, which that stage is right now, considering overshoot days getting closer and closer every year to January, we have to become advocates, and whatever way we can, calling our federal representatives and having a chat, using an email template to send an email, speaking to them when you run into them at events, right? And what are we advocating for? We want scale, we want reuse at scale, right? And we want to slow down the tap of wasting at source, material extraction at source as well. And we want the corporations who do this to be held accountable. They should pay. They should have the eco-anxiety, not us. It's really unfair when individuals literally can do nothing about the system, but then they can't sleep at night. You buy a piece of plastic and you can't sleep for 2 weeks because you feel like you're such a horrible person. It makes no sense to me, right? So some of the things we can advocate for is there are a lot of circular economy, startups, businesses, artists, initiatives. So we want support of these initiatives, right? We want funding, right? We want support like procurement for those sorts of businesses, right? So the businesses that are profitable now are the ones, in a lot of cases, are the ones who are the most wasteful. We want to reverse that trend. It should be the ones who are using waste to create new things, i.e. Keeping things in circulation, supporting the circular economy. They should be the ones making the profits, not the other way around, not the Coca-Colas of the world, right? So we have to speak up, we have to take action. And I don't mean going to the streets and protesting. It doesn't have to be that. A simple letter, phone call, speaking to people, if you're on social media, writing about it, if you write articles, things like that do make a difference, right? To change in the way we think as a society so that we can enact policies and eventually legislation, right? And asking for, as I mentioned, funding, right? Asking for support. Support doesn't always have to be financial. It could be campaign. When we had the slip, slop, slap, everyone started wearing sunscreen, right? So campaigns like that educate people about supporting circular initiatives, buying from Australian brands, those sort of campaigns really help to turn things around. And then things like tax incentives, right? And tax breaks for individuals, businesses that are circular. So I think that's kind of it. Thank you so much for having me. I hope that wasn't too political, but thank you.